the university's requirements. Then the meeting your requirements. So it is very understand the course objective of the university, the departmental objectives. So, first of all, when you are selecting a university, you need to understand whether they are offering the courses you're interested in. You have to identify your key areas of interest. So let's say mine is data science. So I will have to go and check in the web page of the department whether they are offering enough number of courses related to data science. And also, what in data science do I want to learn? That is also very important. So are they offering those courses that are of my interest? And also, apart from the courses being offered, you also need to check the areas of research, because in many cases, a master's program is a research-based degree. Master's PhD, of course, is a research-based degree, and that there the research component is most important. Whereas for masters, it's 50-50. So 50% of your time you'll spend in coursework, 50% in research. So you need to see which professors are, who are the professors, what kind of research they are conducting, what kind of publications they have, which field they are publishing in. Is it of any interest to you? Do you want to do research in that field? And things like how many graduate students are there under them, and what kind of research they are doing, the current graduate students. So that is very important. Also the profiles of the current graduate students, that's important. And then, of course, the duration of the program. So sometimes some programs are for 1 year, some are for 2 years. It may vary with between countries. It may vary within the same country also. So, for example, most courses in US and Canada, they are for 2 years for masters. And for PhD, of course, it's 5 to 6 years minimum. Now, for other countries like UK and Ireland and all, they have a majority of courses are for 1 year. And there it's mostly taught courses, which is the research component is very little. It's mostly the coursework components. So what do you want? Do you want to build up on the coursework, or do you also want a research component? You want a career in the industry, you already have experience, you already have research experience, all you want is a master's degree with some more insights into some courses, and you want to move on in the industry. Then it's a 1 year course, fine. Otherwise, you have very little exposure to research, you want some research skills, and also you need more thorough coursework, so you want to spend some more time on the degree, and you're not yet decided whether to go for research, whether to go for, industry or whatever. Then, of course, you need a 2 years master's. So you need to understand the program as well. Then publications, one more thing. So you need to see whether the university, whether that department is actively publishing. If they are, then their research is well funded. So funding is also something that you need to understand. So that, in fact, that determines scholarships, of course, but not in all cases do master students get scholarships, PhD students do. So aside from scholarship also, you'll understand whether the research that they're conducting is important to the scientific community or not. That is also, evident from the publications. And any other objectives. So some programs are, they align you very strongly to the industry, like Northeastern University. So their computer science course aligns you very well with the industry. Whereas others, some are very, research based. So for example, Pennsylvania State, they are very research based. So they focus on academic research. They prepare you to for next steps in academic research when you do a master's over there. If it's PhD, then definitely, in majority of the cases, you want to go for academic research. And even if it's industry, it's, thorough industrial research. So that's already decided. But for masters, these things need to be considered as well. Okay. So why we are talking about course objectives? Because the course objectives have to align perfectly with your long-term goals. This is what the university wants to see. So so the first thing that you need to have is clarity on your long-term goals. So every time you're checking a course, you're checking that keeping your goals in mind. Okay. So whatever your goals are. Now, let's say I want, I need to understand. I want to be in the industry and I want to do research. So naturally, I will look into courses that will prepare me for that. So those should be, aligned. The courses should also be aligned to the industry itself. So that is something you keep in mind. Then also sometimes you want to be you're very academically oriented and you want to take a PhD after that. So you should see that this particular department offers courses that are very in-depth, research oriented. They're doing a lot of research. They have PhD options also after this. So even if I want to move on to PhD, I can do that in this particular department. So the idea is to be very, very thorough, very, very clear with one's long-term goals. Oftentimes we are not. It's difficult. But forget about the future. We may not, follow the same footsteps as we are thinking right now. That's okay. But for now, at least we should have that clarity. At least a broad areas that we want to move into. Like I want to take up courses in data science, but I don't know what to do after that. No, yeah, that's not what universities are looking for in you, because you are also choosing universities based on that. So let's say I want to get into research related to data visualization. That is something I have in mind. I don't know what kind of research I'm going to do, but at least I know that I'm going to research in this area. So I look for courses and research options where these things, courses related to data visualization is available and will help you. So this comes across from your SOP. Your SOP, in your SOP, you should be able to really, with clarity, you should be able to articulate what you want out of this. Only if they see that there is this very obvious match between you and these goals, then only you will be accepted into the program. Otherwise, really, if this part is fuzzy, there's no acceptance. So naturally, we are thinking of university shortlisting, keeping in mind our acceptance into the universities in most cases. So naturally, we have to think back and see whether our goals are aligning with the course objectives. So naturally, we'll select universities based on that. Now, there are various other factors also. One, key among them is the acceptance rate of the universities. This is something you need to keep in mind. I just cannot hear about a university and prepare myself to apply for it. I need to understand what is their pattern of acceptance, what has their acceptance rates been. Now, these I'm not talking about in numbers, because you often get numbers on the internet, but most of them are very dated, or they are not updated, or they are, in most cases they are wrong, or at least they portray a wrong picture. They're not wrong, but they cannot be interpreted properly. So always go to people with experience in this area, from what they have seen over the years, because it's not just based on 1 year of experience. It's based on several years. What has their rate of acceptance been? Not in numbers, but at least how many people they know have gotten accepted to those universities over the last few years. That is important. Then international student acceptance, because again, rate of acceptance may be pretty decent, but then there are some, like let's say University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. Many people want to go there, especially for mechanical engineering, but their rate of international acceptance is very, very low. So as an international student, if you do not have some exposure outside of your country, it becomes very difficult to go to Ann Arbor. Because I have had in the past, I have had a couple of students, just to give an example, they were both applying to UMich Ann Arbor, and they had very similar profiles per se from the appearance of it. But the only difference was one of them had worked in Finland before applying, and one of them had throughout, studied and worked in India. So the person with the Finnish experience got accepted, while the other person did not. So naturally, these things matter. Then comes internal recommendations, as I mentioned, for places like Harvard and all the Ivy Leagues. It really works wonders. Then, of course, there are others like location. You may have a preference for a certain location based on whether your family resides there, or whether you have friends there, or whether it's suitable for jobs also. These are some of the things you need to consider. Now, I'm not saying you need to consider. You sometimes do consider. which is okay. But still, I would say don't stay very restricted to one or two locations. Venture out, it's okay. It's not like if you study somewhere, you cannot find a job elsewhere. It's not like that. See how the university is. See what is the repute of the university. That is more important. Then, for example, somebody the other day asked me that, whether you should be applying to University of Utah, because Utah as such, the location is not that great, but the university for that particular course is good. So I advised on applying, because even if he graduates from there, it's okay. He will be able to manage a job elsewhere also. Then there's language of instruction. If it's not in an English speaking country like Germany, so there in many cases the courses have German as a language of instruction. So there, if you don't know German till a very high level, like B1, B2 level, then you should not be choosing those universities. And then there's sometimes universities require work experience, some international exposure. This is especially true for business related programs, MBAs or otherwise also, or programs coming under business schools. So this is something that you need to keep in mind. Ranking of the universities gives you a general idea, as I said before, but it's not the most important criteria. So after you've taken all the other things into account, you can take into account the ranking of the universities and just check to see whether, okay, how are the universities doing in terms of this course. It's fine, but it's not the most important criteria. And yes, sometimes, fees also matters. So you need to, sometimes your budget is restricted. So you look for a certain amount of, look into the cost of living, the overall cost of the of studies in that particular department, on all of that. But even then, in most cases, I've seen people, you don't always have to self-sponsor the entire amount. I've seen people taking loans also, and here in Yocket, we have loan. We help you with loans as well. So educational loans, those are common nowadays. But then, yeah, if you want to consider fees, that also you can look into while selecting universities. But majorly, these are the factors first, and then you should look into the other ones. So now that you have, let's say you have a set of universities before you, and now you need to understand how difficult it would be or how easy it would be for you to get into those universities. So for that purpose, you classify universities into three major categories: ambitious, moderate, and safe. That is the usual convention. Now, how do you categorize these universities? What all factors do you take into consideration? So naturally, the two most important factors that you take into consideration are, one is, as I said, the best fit. So you should be the key that opens this lock. So naturally, the best fit key will open this lock of getting into the university. So naturally, this fit, whether your profile fits the university's requirement, and whether you can justify that the university you've chosen fits your requirements. So if you feel like, okay, this particular university has wonderful courses, I feel these courses are really great, and also what they're asking for is, what I feel is, yes, based on my GPAs, my test scores, and all the other factors that we talked about, I feel I can, I can manage well. So that is one thing. Now for the ambitious categories, naturally, the fit is a little lesser. So here what happens is, here you think that the university fits your bill very well, but the other way around, that is vice versa, may not be so much true. You probably your profile does not really match up that well with the university's requirements. So that is when it becomes ambitious. The next step is moderate, wherein you feel that, okay, it's more or less a 50-50 situation, wherein I may or may not fulfill the university's requirements, but the courses are really good. And the third one is, of course, the courses are matching with your interest, and you feel that you do real good justice. Your profile does real good justice to the university's requirements. in terms of all the factors that we talked about. So that is when we call it safe, because your chances of getting into that university is highest. Highest being more or less above 85%. Now nobody can say that it's 100% because ultimately it's upon the evaluator. So this is something you need to keep in mind when you are breaking down the universities into groups. And also somewhat it depends on the acceptance rates also. Now sometimes you feel that this university is a perfect match for me, both ways, but the university usually takes very few students, either due to less availability of seats, or less funding, or maybe as such the departments are small. So that's why even though you fit, you may not get accepted. So then again, it doesn't become safe in that case. It may become moderate, but it's not safe. So that is also one thing that you need to keep in mind. So keeping these two major criteria in mind, you classify the universities. So if I sum it up, sum everything up when it comes to university shortlisting, as you can understand, the first and major criteria is that best fit thing that you need to keep in mind. And the best fit means either ways, both ways. It has to be a good fit. So the better the fit, the naturally the safer the choice becomes for you. And apart from that, you also have to consider other factors, that is the acceptance rate of the universities, and any other factor that is of priority to you, like location, like fees and whatever. And ranking comes last. So after you do all of this, just check how the university is positioned, but that's okay. If the courses are aligned to your interest, that's really more than enough. You will really be able to give your best shot. And if you do that and network well while you are continuing your studies over there, then you will definitely get a job. So I have seen that many students who have gone to their best fit universities have fared much better than students who have aimed really high, have somehow gotten in. Nowadays, there's very little chance of it, but earlier still there was a little less competition. So somehow they've gotten in, but they didn't fare very well in those very highly ambitious schools. So naturally, they had to struggle with job scenarios also. And so that's why you should understand this and understand your profile very well, understand the university's requirements, understand the course objectives and your long-term goals. These are 4 important things to determine the best fit.